Hello everybody, welcome to another Eternal Deck Tech. Just as always, want to give a big shout out to my wonderful sponsor, inkgaming.com. You can look at them down below. They sell really cool mouse pads and playmats and other awesome custom gaming gear. And we have a bunch of channel art up in the store with them, so you can always check them out. And of course, to all the subs and patrons who make this possible, this week we are going to the Scottish Highlands and swearing some vengeance for the Great Feud. So we've got a Highland Sharpshooter deck that's running a lot of ways to give it revenge. So the idea of the deck is that Highland Sharpshooter gives us a bunch of battle skills onto random units, and we can use that in a bunch of different ways. There's a ton of other cards that care about that. It's also something that's very powerful with revenge. Like, revenge is all obviously pretty awesome to give to other units, and it's also something that is very good with certain cards like Hero of the People and stuff with double damage. You can kind of stack some certain things this way to make it a little bit more intriguing. So we've got a bunch of cool things that we can do with that. It's good with Revenge itself, and it's also good on units with Revenge as well, because if you put something on Inquisitor Makto, like you give it Lifesteal, or you give it Endurance, like you've got Xenan Lifespeaker, or you have Reinvigorates, then Makto, every time it comes back, still has that ability, and that's pretty gross. Anything you get to something like Makto, or any revenge unit, honestly, is a pretty big upgrade. So what we're going to be doing is, we've got like a little bit of like standard vengeance kind of shell, I would say. You've got your Tock and your Crownwatch press gangs, and some Xenan Lifespeaker. So the idea is that Tock can be brought up with Crownwatch press gang, as can Lifespeaker, and then you can use them as fuel for your fire. So you can save Tock. So if you have a Hero of the People in hand, you can go Crownwatch press gang, and then next turn immediately go Hero of the People Tock, instant revenge. Hero of the People, even if it dies at that point, you know that you can get it later on, and then you'll have your whole turn worth of power available, so you can give different buffs to it as well and continue to save it, you know, get another Stonepowder Alchemist, play a Makto, or better yet, give it other abilities like double damage, right? So you can kind of keep doing that kind of thing. You also have Lifespeaker, which I think is just fantastic with Crownwatch Pest Gang. It's one of the best one-drops that you can grab with it. It gives Lifesteal, which is important for Highland Sharpshooter, because this gives the top unit of your deck the battle skill. So even if they lose the Lifespeaker later on, you might still have Highland Sharpshooter and be able to pop it off, get another Lifesteal onto another unit. Really important on things like Makto, like I said. Then you have Hero of the People, which obviously works with all of these different kinds of cards that we're talking about. Red Canyon Smuggler. All of the merchants are very important, and right now, as you may have guessed, we're dealing with the Fire Justice Shadow Menace, and there's no question that Red Canyon Smuggler is a large portion of that. It shows up more than almost any other unit right now. It's just incredible. Its stat line is so big. Like, if it was a 4-3 for 3, it wouldn't be nearly as good. The double damage is unreal, and being able to grab like Deepforged plate out of the market with it makes it just out of this world scary. Anytime that it stays around, you've got to be worried about what it can do. And obviously we've got like a bunch of really good cards in the market that we'll get to later. So you always want to have some kind of market, and I think Red Canyon Smuggler is perfect for this kind of deck, because you want to add a bunch of different abilities to Highland Sharpshooter that you might not want to run in the main deck or have like a bunch of extra copies of. And I like Red Canyon Smuggler as a solution to that. Or like some high impact, more expensive cards like Deepforged plate. And then we also have Stonepowder Alchemist, kind of, again, traditional like shell for your revenge list. You've got like the Tock and Crownwatch Press Gang, and then you'll have Stonepowder Alchemist, and you're going to pair all those with Devour, so works very well there. Very traditional play with Hero of the People as well. Automatic Lifesteal and Revenge is just perfect for Hero of the People. Those are two of the more important abilities, so it's awesome to get it on there. Then we have the Makto, like we said. We've got Torch and Display and Slay as our removal. So Display of Ambition is a very powerful card, does a bunch of different things for us. It's one of the few times where its first ability is relevant as well as all the other ones, but like just every stat line of this is incredible incredibly relevant. Giving your units +1 attack and overwhelm gets it so that, you know, your Highland Sharpshooter does more damage, your Hero of the People triggers. It stays on Inquisitor Makto forever, so even if it dies, it comes back. Giving overwhelm to your double damage unit is huge. There's so many ways in which this really, really helps as just the first one, which is normally the line that is the least important. And in this deck, like I said, all of them are really important. Drawing 2 units from your Void and taking 2 damage, we have Revenge. You get a bunch of free units off of that. So there's a lot of ways you can use that as well. And then obviously killing enemy units is nothing to sneeze at. So being able to kill opposing units is awesome for that as well. Then we have like the Slay, just traditional straight up kill something. Torch, just to help with a little bit of aggro stuff. Although generally we're hoping that things like Tock and Sharpshooter and stuff can buy us a little bit of time. Like Stonepowder Alchemist is pretty good at shutting down a lot of early aggression because it trades off nicely, gains you a little bit of life, and of course comes back, so it just becomes a little bit of a frustration engine for a lot of aggro matchups. We have the Devours to gain us cards like we talked about, and we have Reinvigorate, which I like a lot because Endurance is just such a powerful ability, and when we start stacking a ton of abilities on something like Hero of the People, Reinvigorate suddenly becomes an unbelievable amount of damage. It's really, really fun to get a Red Canyon Smuggler and put like a Deepforged plate on it, and then when your opponent goes to block, just reinvigorating it and pumping it up by like another 5 and just annihilating them. So you can do some cool things with Reinvigorate. Obviously, if you get Overwhelm on Hero of the People, same kind of thing, and there's, like we said, a few ways to do that in this deck. We have our general power base, lots and lots of crests and banners and things like that. I'm sure that this can shift around a little bit. I've been testing it only a little bit here and there today, but this is just kind of my basic startup of the power base. It is only 25. We're running really, really low-end creatures here, so I'm generally hoping this works out. I haven't had too many problems with the power base so far, but you might want to try and add in some Seek Powers or some Winchest Contraband kind of things, so just to kind of help that out if you're finding a lot of problems with the power base. Another thing that you can look at adding into, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Hold that thought. There's another card that I would like to fit in here, but I think it changes the deck a fair bit. We have, as the market, we have Boar, because, hey, opposing Avigraft is still a thing. Boar is in here because of our next market card. It's also just in here, there's a lot of different relics running around. There's a few different relic recs, especially we're in meme tier masters, so we're running in like under 1,000 in Masters, which is where I love to sit. We get a bunch of really wild brews in that area, and a lot of weird brews have a lot of different kinds of relics. And obviously Avigraft is just awesome. It totally shuts down opposing smugglers and merchants, and lots of very, very key cards. You know, getting a Vara or something or Kaifus with it is just disgusting. We have Righteous Fury, which is one that I kind of want to put in the main deck, but I also want to have it in the market. So it's an interesting one. You don't want to have too many copies of it because you don't want multiples in a hand, but when you want it, you really, really want it. Giving a unit double damage and lifesteal, it's like, for 4, that seems so expensive, and it really, really is. But when our goal is to go Highland Sharpshooter and then Righteous Fury, that's amazing. Like, when you can Righteous Fury, Highland Sharpshooter, and then you immediately hit, like, Inquisitor Makto off of it, it is so beautiful. There's no way people get out of it. It's just despicable. So you can do some cool things with Righteous Fury. Regent's Tomb is another one, and it works really well, again, with the Highland Sharpshooter style of thing, because it does give you Swear Vengeance, which will both trigger the Renown on Highland Sharpshooter and give it Revenge, which is one of the more important abilities for it to have. Obviously, Sabotage and Lingering Influence are also very relevant, so Regent's Tomb is quite a nice little card. Getting Elias off of it is really insane. Doesn't happen too often, but boy, if you can set it up, it's great. And then, last but not least, Deepforged Plate. It's unbelievably good on Red Canyon Smuggler, and you know that you'll always have Red Canyon Smuggler if you're going for Deepforged Plate. I mean, I guess they can torch it or whatever, but in general, it's a pretty sweet little 2-for combo. Works very, very well on Highland Sharpshooter, Hero of the People as well. Like, this Deepforged Plate goes everywhere excellent. In this deck, even more than most. The card that I was talking about, though, so we've kind of looked at the whole deck right now. You might notice one thing that's missing and be wondering where it is, and that is Kaifus. Because Kaifus definitely looks like it could fit in this shell, right? You want to give it abilities so that it gets, when it gets its summon ability off, then it gets other new abilities and just keep stacking them like crazy. You want to get like lots of ways to get it back out of your void. It makes a lot of sense. But I just wanted it to be a little bit faster than that, and I've been trying it out with Hero of the People, and I've really liked the speed of it. It's allowed us to play only about 25 power. We need to hold up a lot of power a lot of the times for all of our tricks, whether it's Reinvigorate or Devour or Display of Ambition. A key point, by the way, Devour is really important right now because of the fact that Avigraft is a thing. Devouring your unit in response to an opposing Avigraft is really, really nice. So just as an aside. But yeah, I just thought that 6 was a little expensive, so I've gotten Inquisitor Makto there instead. It's certainly something that you could try and fit in here, and I think that you could go a different route, and instead of doing like the Hero of the People and trying to be a little bit more early and aggressive, you could try and get some later game stuff instead, and maybe even run some Dark Returns, try and maybe play like Vara and Kaifis, and go the more mid-range, like almost control route with this deck. But I feel like you could have a very different deck if you do it that way. So I'm not 100% certain which way I would like to ultimately go, but I'm going to try this one out. I'd love to see some ideas for what people have for like a later game version of this with Kaifis that goes off with like a Highland Sharpshooter Righteous Fury thing. I wouldn't mind seeing some decks like that because I like the idea of this, and I wouldn't mind seeing some more. So you can leave that in the comments below, and in the meantime, we're jumping into some games, so let's get going.